When people ask me how we met, I usually give them the short, sweet version. We bumped into each other at a friend's birthday party. She laughed at one of my awkward jokes, and the rest was history. But the truth is, the night I met Rachel felt like the universe had finally handed me something perfect. She was magnetic. Her presence filled the room, and everyone seemed to orbit around her. When she spoke, people listened. When she laughed, it was impossible not to laugh with her. I, on the other hand, was just the quiet guy in the corner with a drink I didn't really want, wondering if I should go home early. But then she noticed me. Out of everyone there, she walked straight toward me, her smile dazzling, her eyes sharp and mischievous. "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else," she said, leaning in as if we were already sharing a secret. I stumbled over my words, embarrassed by how easily she had read me. But she didn't seem put off. Instead, she asked me question after question, drawing me out of my shell. By the end of the night, we were tucked into a quiet corner, talking like we had known each other for years. I was captivated. She was bold where I was cautious, fiery where I was gentle. She made me feel alive, like I had finally found someone who could pull me out of the shadows I'd been hiding in for so long. When she gave me her number, I felt like the luckiest man alive. Our first dates were intoxicating. She swept me into her world with an intensity I wasn't used to. Everything with Rachel was fast, passionate, overwhelming. She'd text me at 2 a.m., unless to say she missed me. She'd drag me into spontaneous adventures, convincing me to skip work just to spend the day with her. I felt needed, wanted, desired in a way I never had before. But even in those early days, there were cracks. Small things I brushed aside because I didn't want to ruin the fantasy, like the way she would mock me in front of her friends, disguising it as a joke, or how she would criticize the way I dressed, the food I cooked, the music I liked. She always said it with a smile, always wrapped in laughter, but the sting lingered. I told myself it was nothing, that she just had a sharp sense of humor, that I was too sensitive. And besides, when we were alone, she could be tender, almost vulnerable. Those moments of softness felt like a reward, like proof that beneath her hard edges was someone who truly cared for me. I didn't realize then that I was already being pulled into something dangerous, that her affection wasn't love, it was a hook, and I was sinking deeper with every smile, every kiss, every whispered promise. At the time, I thought I had found the woman of my dreams. I didn't know she would slowly turn into my nightmare. The first time Rachel raised her voice at me, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. We were at her apartment, cooking dinner together, and I accidentally dropped a glass. It shattered across the kitchen floor, water splashing everywhere. She froze, then snapped, "God, you're so clumsy. Can't you do anything right?" Her words hit me harder than I expected, sharp and humiliating. But almost as quickly as her anger flared, it vanished. She sighed, laughed, and kissed my cheek. "I didn't mean it, babe. You just startled me." I laughed too, brushing it off. Everyone gets irritated sometimes, right? But the memory stuck, a tiny splinter I couldn't quite shake. From then on, little jabs slipped into her conversations more often. She criticized the way I folded laundry, the way I drove, even the way I spoke. Sometimes it was in public, where she'd roll her eyes at something I said and add, "See what I have to deal with." Her friends would laugh, and I'd force a smile, pretending it didn't bother me. But it did. Every comment chipped away at me, even though I tried to hide it. And yet, for every cruel word, there were moments of intense affection. Nights when she clung to me, whispering that she couldn't imagine her life without me. Days when she surprised me with gifts, or pulled me into her arms like I was the only thing keeping her grounded. Those moments felt so real, so powerful, that they made me forget the rest. I started changing without realizing it. I dressed the way she liked. I avoided saying things that might annoy her. I rearranged my schedule around her needs, her moods, her whims. If she wanted me to cancel plans with my friends, I did. If she demanded I answer her calls immediately, I did. The truth was, I was scared. Not scared of her physically, at least. Not yet, but scared of losing her. Scared of the cold silence that came whenever she was displeased with me. That silence was worse than any insult. It made me feel invisible, worthless. Sometimes, I caught glimpses of the Rachel I first fell for, the radiant, playful woman who made me feel alive. But those glimpses were becoming rarer, swallowed by someone sharper, harder, more cruel. And yet, I stayed. Because love, I told myself, means enduring flaws. Love means patience, sacrifice, understanding. She had been hurt in her past, she told me once, and I believed I could be the one to heal her. But healing her meant breaking myself, and I was too blinded by love to see it. Asterisk by the third month, the insults had become routine. What started as occasional sharp remarks grew into daily reminders that I was never enough. If I forgot to text her during lunch, she accused me of not caring. If I made a decision without asking her first, she called me selfish. Her words cut deeper each time. You're pathetic. No wonder no one else wanted you. If I left, you'd have nothing. The cruel thing was I believed her. I had given so much of myself to her that I couldn't imagine a life outside of our relationship anymore. She had isolated me slowly, almost imperceptibly. Friends stopped inviting me out because I always canceled. My family called less because I rarely answered. My world shrank until it was just her, and she knew it. There were moments when I thought about leaving, nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me, and wondered how I had let myself become so small. But every time I tried to pull away, she reeled me back in. Whenever I reached my breaking point, she would suddenly soften. She'd cry, saying she was afraid I would abandon her. She'd remind me of the good times, of the nights filled with laughter, of the dreams we once shared. She'd tell me I was her only safe place in the world, the only one who truly understood her, and I would stay, because I loved her. Or, at least, I thought I did. The cycle was relentless. Insults, humiliation, cold silence, followed by apologies, tears, passion. The highs were intoxicating, the lows unbearable. I told myself that love was supposed to be hard, that relationships required effort. But deep down, I knew this wasn't love. This was control. One evening, after a particularly brutal fight, she shoved me. It wasn't hard, more of a push to get me out of her way, but it shocked me. The line had been crossed. My heart pounded as I stared at her, waiting for some kind of apology. But she just glared and said, "Don't look at me like that. You made me do it." And unbelievably, I accepted it. I convinced myself it was nothing, that I had provoked her, that if I just tried harder, if I just loved her more, things would get better. But love had turned into fear. Fear of her moods, fear of her words, fear of her touch when it turned sharp instead of tender. And yet, I clung to her, because the thought of losing her terrified me even more than the pain of staying. Asterisk by the time a year had passed, I hardly recognized myself. The man who once had dreams, hobbies, and friends had been replaced by someone who lived entirely for Rachel's approval. My life revolved around anticipating her moods, avoiding her anger, and grasping at the fleeting scraps of affection she doled out when it suited her. I stopped painting the one passion that had always grounded me because she called it a waste of time. I stopped seeing my closest friend, Mark, because she accused him of filling my head with lies. Even at work, I carried her voice in my head, second-guessing every move, hearing her tell me I was useless. And the worst part, I started to believe it. Rachel's words became my truth. If she told me I was worthless, I nodded silently, convinced she was right. If she said no one else would ever love me, I believed her. She had torn me down so slowly, so methodically, that I couldn't tell where her voice ended and mine began. The few times I tried to defend myself ended badly. One night, I told her I didn't deserve the way she spoke to me. Her face darkened instantly. "You're lucky I even tolerate you," she spat. "Men like you should be grateful to even have someone like me." Her cruelty stung, but her breakdowns hurt even more. The moment I tried to stand up for myself, she would crumble, sobbing, saying I didn't understand how hard her life was. She would clutch me, begging me not to abandon her like everyone else had, and each time, my resolve melted. I'd wrap my arms around her, whispering promises that I would never leave. Even as my heart silently screamed for escape, there were days when I caught my reflection and barely recognized the hollow eyes staring back. My coworkers noticed the change, asking if I was okay, but I always laughed it off. How could I tell them the truth? How could I admit that the woman I loved was destroying me piece by piece, and that I was letting her? At night, when Rachel fell asleep, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was all my life would ever be, walking on eggshells, begging for scraps of love, losing myself more with each passing day. And yet, even as I thought it, I knew I would stay, because the fear of life without her felt worse than the torment of life with her. But deep inside, a small voice whispered, "If you don't leave soon, there will be nothing left of you to save." The night everything shattered started like any other. Rachel and I were supposed to have dinner together. I came home early, cooked her favorite meal, and tried to make the apartment feel warm and inviting. I wanted, desperately, to prove that I could still make her happy. When she arrived, she barely looked at the table. Her eyes were cold, her mouth already set in a sneer. "This is what you wasted your time on?" she asked, pointing at the food. "No wonder your life is going nowhere. You're pathetic." I felt the familiar sting, the heaviness in my chest, but this time something inside me cracked. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the months of insults, the endless cycle of humiliation and false affection. Or maybe it was because, in that moment, I realized she wasn't going to change no matter how much love I gave her. I told her, quietly, that I couldn't do this anymore. For a second, she froze. Then came the storm. She screamed, accused me of abandoning her, of being weak, of ruining her life. She shoved the plate of food off the table, sending it crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the apartment like a gunshot, and I just stood there, silent, empty. When she finally collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, waiting for me to comfort her like always, I didn't move. I couldn't, because for the first time, I saw her for what she was, not a broken woman who needed saving, but an abuser who had broken me. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and walked out. My hands were trembling. My heart felt like it was tearing itself apart, but I kept walking. Down the stairs, out the door, into the cold night air. She called me dozens of times that night, left voicemails, sent messages ranging from rage to desperation. I didn't answer. For once, I let the silence stay. In the weeks that followed, I felt both free and utterly shattered. I cried more than I ever had in my life. I questioned everything, how I let it get so far, why I hadn't left sooner, whether I was truly as worthless as she had convinced me. Healing was slow, painful, and lonely. But piece by piece, I started to rebuild. I painted again. I met with Mark, who welcomed me back without judgment. I spent time with my family, realizing how much I had missed them, and slowly, I began to remember who I was before Rachel. Sometimes, even now, I still miss her. Or, I miss the version of her I fell in love with, the woman from that first night at the party. But I know that version never truly existed. She was just a mask, a lure. The truth is harsh but clear. Love is not meant to destroy you. Love is not supposed to be fear and humiliation dressed up as passion. I loved her. I lost myself. And walking away was the hardest, most painful, but also the bravest thing I've ever done. Because in the end, surviving her meant finally choosing myself.